All right, we've got set dressing. I'm in costume. Chris, I have a guess the quote for you. Adam Schiff has performed a great public service with this engrossing and illuminating new book. By taking us inside the impeachments of the 45th president, Schiff has written an important first draft of history, but it is history that is not remote or retrospective, but all too immediate for the threats to the republic. Schiff so deftly describes Remain With Us. If you care about American democracy, the rule of law, and the future of our imperiled nation, this is essential reading. Who said that?
Foghorn Leghorn.
No, that was an incredibly bad guess. That was historian John Meacham.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, who is now the New York Times #1 bestseller for Midnight in America, joins us now.
Midnight in Washington.
Midnight in Washington, pardon me. Good morning, Chairman Schiff.
Good morning. Great to be with you.
Well, it's been a morning here. As you know, I'm wearing my I Stand With Schiff t-shirt. However, I had 2 costume changes. I have 2 You Might Think It's Okay t-shirts. So it was really... This is my original show prep for your book that my 5-month-old puppy ate. So this may not be a Rachel Maddow type interview, but it'll do the best I can.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'll have you know that I was doing a book event in Santa Barbara, and someone came up to have me sign their book, and they said, "I want the autograph of the smooth jazz congressman." And, he said, "You can probably guess what I listened to," and I said, "You're a Stephanie Miller fan, and so am I."
Aww. Well, we were saying Travis is enjoying the audio book because we trained you as our smooth jazz congressman to have that silky voice in addition to your patriotism. Chairman, I think of you all the time. I mean, irrespective of your book, of just what we're going through right now in terms of January 6th, and how when you read your book, it is just astounding that you called everything, that there is such a direct line from the Mueller report and Trump, the Russia, collusion and conspiracy through Ukraine, through exactly what's happening now. And how does that make you feel to go, I said all of this, that letting him get away with this is going to enable it again. And we're right in the middle of it, which that's your subtitle, how we could still lose our democracy.
Well, it honestly makes me feel terrible because I wish there was something I could have said differently or done differently to get people's attention, particularly in the Senate, as to the danger this man posed. It really didn't require any great act of clairvoyance. And I think you're absolutely right. You can draw a straight line from his escape of accountability for his Russia misconduct, for urging Russia to intervene in the 2016 election and making use of Russian help and then lying about it, to when Bob Mueller testified and Donald Trump thought, okay, I finally beat the rap. And the very next day he's on the phone, this time with the leader of another country, Ukraine, trying to get their help to cheat in the very next election. And then you can draw another straight line from the acquittal for that misconduct in the Senate impeachment trial to going on to find new and even worse ways to try to cheat in the 2020 election and the insurrection. And my concern is if he were to ever become reelected, where does the straight line go from there, except into the abyss?
Yeah, well, that is the subtitle, How We Almost Lost Our Democracy and Still Could. One thing I was not surprised about, having watched you in front of me drop an F-bomb at LA Sexy Liberal, is the profanity that you and your staff engaged in. But reading some of the transcripts, whether it's in the Mueller investigation or in the Ukraine or right up through today, that they're doing all of this out in the open, that they wrote it down, that it's some of the most incriminating stuff you've ever seen as a prosecutor, right?
It really is. It would have been unimaginable to me when we began, for example, the Russia investigation, that we would later discover emails in which the Russians were offering dirt on Hillary Clinton as part of what they described in writing as the Russian government effort to help the Trump campaign.
Yeah.
And the Trump campaign's answer was, per the president's son, if it's what you say it is, we would love it. And of course, to see the call record of his conversation later with the president of Ukraine, where the effort to coerce that nation into helping him cheat is just so graphic. It just goes on and on.
Sidebar, counselor. One thing that popped up again for me reading the book. Why was Don Jr. never charged?
Yeah.
How much more obvious does that get?
Well, it's a good question, and I think in the Mueller report, when he's looking at when Mueller is analyzing whether to charge, he took the position he couldn't charge the president, but whether he should charge Don Jr. There is sort of a subtext of they would need to prove that Don Jr. knew that he was violating the law by soliciting Russian interference in the election and trying to get Russian help. And the kind of subtext is that he wasn't smart enough to know what he was doing. Even if you accepted that premise, it doesn't explain why they didn't go after Paul Manafort, who had run presidential campaigns before, was very sophisticated. But of course, Don Jr. knew exactly what he was doing, and if they thought it was okay, they wouldn't have lied about it to everybody and tried to cover it up.
Yeah.
But what's more disturbing to me, Stephanie, is why I don't see any signs that the Justice Department is investigating Donald Trump's phone call to the Secretary of State in Georgia, trying to get Brad Raffensperger to find 11,780 votes that don't exist. Because I don't think you can ignore that, what appears from that call to be an effort to defraud the people of Georgia, if not the whole country. And I think if you had made that call, or I or anyone else listening, they would probably be indicted by now. I don't think we could ignore crimes that are committed or potential crimes committed by a president or former president.
My dog agrees. Chairman, one of the many reasons I thought this was not going to go like Rachel Maddow's interview. Okay, but I have to say, Chairman, that's, your old professor who you write about in the book, Lawrence Tribe, has called for a special prosecutor for January 6th. I mean, again, it's no less criminal that it's all out in the open. And you're right up to including that we have the tape of him asking Brett Raffensperger. I mean, and this has been the case all through all of this, as you write, Mueller and Ukraine, and now January 6th. Is it because we're conditioned like Nixon that they're trying to hide it and then it gets discovered? And the fact that they do this right out in the open. I mean, Bob Woodward said, we talked recently with Republican former head of a criminal division in DOJ, and there's a laydown case just in what we know. It's 18 U.S. Code Section 371. I'm sorry this sounds technical, but it is. It's a law that says it's a crime to defraud the government in any deceptive way, and that's exactly what they did here. Just talking about January 6th.
Yeah. Well, I understand the inclination of the Attorney General not to look backward. Nobody really likes to look backward. But we can't have a situation where you can't prosecute a sitting president, and then when they become the former president, well, you can't prosecute them then either. Because if that's the case, then the president really does become above the law. And that's dangerous in the abstract, given that Donald Trump is once again running for president, though we're not dealing with the abstract. We're dealing with someone who would be an autocrat. And I think it's all the more dangerous in those circumstances. But, one of the things I wanted to write about, Stephanie, because there's been a lot written about what's gone on in the Trump White House, but there hasn't been that much written about what was going on in Congress during these years and how it was that so many people that I worked with, some who I respected and admired because I believed that they believed what they were saying, turned out not to believe it at all, or none of it mattered compared to their ambition for higher office or a position in the Trump cabinet. And that's an important story to tell, too, because Donald Trump could not have done any of the things he did but for these enablers in Congress. Yeah. These, what I've taken to calling insurrectionists in suits and ties.
Yeah. Well, Chairman, not to sound creepy, but reading the book, you remind me of my dad, who was a Nuremberg prosecutor and chairman of the Republican Party, but really was like you, had friends on both sides of the aisle, worked across the aisle, I mean, it is interesting, your whole family background, that your parents were of different political persuasions, and, just how you write that you're the last person that thought you'd be this liberal lightning rod or whatever that became, how you write about how you worked with Nunes before on things, and just Donald Trump seems to have made this whole party, I don't know how else to say it, corrupt and crazy. I mean, I don't know how you deal with it every day.
It is really astonishing when you think about how quickly he was able to completely remake one of America's two great parties in his flawed image. Yeah. It's really an astounding thing. The Republican Party right now is an anti-democratic, anti-truth cult around the former president.
Yeah.
And as long as that's the case, they're just going to need to be beaten at the polls.
Yeah.
There's no accommodating a party that doesn't believe in our democracy anymore. Tucker Carlson, who is the so-called intellectual leader of their party now, is extolling Viktor Orban, the Hungarian wannabe dictator, and the Hungarian model. They're holding conservative political conventions in Budapest. They're making no secret of their desire to turn America into this authoritarian place.
Yeah, and you talk about your travels overseas, and you're watching these autocratic governments in other countries, and it really is quite stunning when you talk even about having to be afraid, is Bill Barr going to prosecute you for just anything, just because Donald Trump obviously was targeting his enemies, but like you would in a banana republic, just think I didn't do anything, but that doesn't matter, I guess. If are they going to even gin something up?
Well, and I remember when Marie Yovanovitch, this wonderful, courageous ambassador, was coming before our committee and testifying, and at one point she was wondering, because she had gotten these calls from the State Department that she needed to get out of Ukraine, that they couldn't vouch for her safety anymore, and she was wondering what was happening, and was she going to be charged with something? And I remember thinking to myself, I can completely relate. And I never imagined having that feeling in the United States, that the Justice Department could be used to, weaponize in service of a corrupt president. But that's where we became under Trump.
I hope that horn isn't you have to vote, because I have so many more questions.
I think it was he was getting a call. His phone was on vibrate, yes.
Because I just, you take us through everything right up to present day and the insurrection, and how one Republican member said to you, I know these people, I can talk to them, you're in a whole different category. And just the level and intensity of death threats that you've received, and your family. I mean, you are going to be, sir, a towering figure in history, and people are already saying this book is going to be the record of the history of this time. But thank you for, I don't know what to say about what you've been through and the threat I'm sure you're still under.
Well, I'll tell you what I think is one of the most important new reasons to buy the book, which is apparently it's really pissing off Donald Trump that it's doing.
Yes, I imagine it is.
And,
good job.
So he's been attacking me ever since it came out, and it's so transparent.
Do you know how many times I've had to defend your neck? I've been this close to your neck, and it resembles nothing of a pencil.
So, all I can say is, his more recent nickname for me is Watermelon Head. And let me tell you, with a pencil neck being a watermelon head, it's a very difficult balancing act.
Must be hard to hold your head up all day. That watermelon noggin of yours. It's so fascinating, just behind the scenes stuff in here about, this Kevin McCarthy basically going out in the press and saying exactly the opposite of what you said in a private conversation. And you said, Kevin, I said the exact opposite of what you told the press. And he said, I know, Adam, but you know how it goes. And you said, no, Kevin, I don't. You just make, up. You are really a potty mouth, sir. And that's how you operate. This is this entire party. I love the meetings with Trump, and that you have 2 different meetings with Trump that you talk about, which just are surreal in the telling of them, right? Being this guy that is attacking you so personally that he took your advice on Iran, and then there's another meeting. Tell us about that.
Well, the first time I met him was right after the famous Nunes midnight run, when Nunes disappeared in the middle of the afternoon or evening to go to some undisclosed location, and would then do a press conference on the White House grounds saying that he had seen documents suggesting some Obama conspiracy to surveil the Trump campaign. And he implied he'd gotten these documents from a whistleblower and had to go to the White House to present them to the White House. And we would find out within a few days that actually the source of the documents was the White House. Yes. And the whole thing was a charade. And when that happened, I was invited to the White House to review these documents, which ultimately didn't show anything that Nunes had been suggesting. So I go to the White House and I get a message from one of the president's staff, President Trump's staff, that he wants to see me in the Oval Office, but I can't bring anyone with me, basically no witnesses. And of course I was reluctant to do it because I didn't want him to misrepresent some conversation we'd have over Russia, but I also didn't want him to say that I refused to meet with him. So I went to the Oval Office and I walked in, and he's sitting behind, that Resolute desk. And first of all, it was so jarring to see him in that room and sitting behind that desk. It was like a scene out of Mad Magazine. And I remember thinking that, here he had, pretended to be a successful businessman when he was a failure in private practice and in the private sector. And now he was pretending to be president.
Yeah.
And he gets up from behind the desk and he shakes my hand. And first thing he says is, you do a good job. And your first impulse when somebody says that is to return the compliment and say, well, so do you. But I couldn't bring myself to do it.
Yeah, no kidding.
And there was this, heavy, pregnant pause before I think I said something like, thank you. Anyway, it was...
wow.
I did my best to steer the conversation away from Russia. And at one point we were talking about prescription drugs. And he said, he got on the subject of Elijah Cummings, who was very supportive of reducing the cost of prescription drugs. And he said, Elijah Cummings, Elijah says a lot of nice things about me. And I was thinking to myself, I've never heard Elijah Cummings say anything nice about you. But anyway, it was, as you say, completely surreal.
Yeah. I mean, from all this backstage stuff, a Republican saying to you, keep doing what you're doing. I mean, this party does not believe in the big lie, does not believe, it knows all of it, knows everything that you said. And I guess history will, record what happens here. Do you feel like there's going to be real accountability for January 6th? Do you have confidence in the DOJ? Where do you think we are now?
We are doing, I think, on the committee, on a very nonpartisan basis, everything we should be doing. We're moving with speed. We're being thorough. We're bringing in witnesses at a vigorous pace. And those who are refusing to cooperate, we're going after them with criminal contempt, like Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon refused to show up, and the next week we passed out of committee and off the House floor a criminal contempt resolution, which the Justice Department now has. And I am, hoping and expecting that they're going to prosecute him. Yeah. And they should prosecute him.
Yeah. Well, in the wake of the Willard Hotel and the Rolling Stone piece, if I were, you have way more class and grace than I do, I'd be going, what did I tell you? What did I tell you? Look, there's T-shirts. I said, you might think it's okay, but it's not. And he will do it again.
Sure.
Chairman, thank you. I can't say enough. I wish we had so much more. Oh, by the way, he's also introducing the Equal Health Care for All Act. I know you're doing all kinds of good work beyond just the Intelligence Committee, and I can't say enough about you. And Rachel Maddow doesn't have this many T-shirts. That's all I want to say.
No, I think you're absolutely right about that, and she's not my constituent.
That's right.
That's
exactly.
right. You are, Stephanie.
That's right. And
you live in his
yes,
district.
Thank you for the pothole as well. And listen, God bless you, and congratulations on the book. So well deserved.
Thank you. Great to see you.
All right. Thanks so much. There he goes,
Yeah.
Chairman Adam Schiff, rock star of stage, screen, and of course, sexy liberal.
I love him so much.